Hey everybody, this is Dr. Brian Prax, Clinical Director at Chronic Care Charlottesville. I'm a doctor of chiropractic, certified sports practitioner, board certified in integrative medicine, and certified by the American Functional Neurology Institute. But what should really matter in today's webinar isn't all the accolades and all the alphabet soup behind a doctor's name. What should really matter are the results that he or she is able to obtain. Today the topic is say goodbye to chronic pain with brain-based strategies. And I'm going to unravel the 3 secrets. We're going to be unraveling a lot more than that, but the 3 secrets needed to get an 85 to a 90% success rate with chronic conditions. In our office, we focus on conditions such as diabetes, weight management, overweight, obese, peripheral neuropathy, which is oftentimes caused from diabetes, chronic knee pain, shoulder pain, and anything chronic, meaning lasting a long time. So let's go ahead and get started. But before we talk about this, chronic pain and how it's related to the brain, we got to first talk about the possibility. The first thing that we need to know, I suppose you could call it a secret, is that we've got to think that we can actually change the brain and change our chronic condition. And the answer to that is absolutely, unequivocally, yes. The brain is plastic, it's moldable, it can model and remodel itself, it can wire, it can unwire, it can rewire. It's amazing what the brain can. But don't take it from me, there's so much literature out there. One of my favorites is by this doctor. His name is Dr. Deutsch. It's kind of like Dodge with an I in it. And he writes a book called The Brain That Changes Itself. And we can read the entire script. I'll read it for you. It is right here. The script that I love is that it's a plastic, living organ that can actually change its own structure and function even into very old age. This revolutionary discovery called neuroplasticity promises to overthrow the century-old notion that the brain is fixed and unchanging. And I'll often come in and talk to a patient and say, listen, do you believe that you can actually change? Do you believe that you can actually make a difference? It is 100%, you definitely can. Dr. Deutsch talks a lot about changing the brain itself, but this also goes for nerves down here in the fingers. It goes for toes. It goes for nerves anywhere. In his book, it's a phenomenal book. I recommend getting it, eye-opening. But he tells stories of stroke victims getting full usage of their limbs back. He's got people that were blind that were able to retrain by using things like their tongue in order to see. It's just incredible. We've heard about how we can learn a new language. How do you do that? You actually wire the brain and the language centers for that. I've experienced it with myself, even just playing basketball. I have a pretty strong right hand, but how about building up the left hand? So we just want to make sure that when we build and build and build and build, then what we want to do is do perfect practice. So practice makes perfect, but more importantly, as Deutsch points out, perfect practice makes perfect, okay? So what we want to do when learning a language is study the art, study the language, study the nuances of the scripts and how they say things, etc., the accent. And when I'm doing a left-hand layup, start out slow, get it down, get it right, but perfect practice is the key. All right, so we call this often our superhighway, this nervous system, and it starts at an embryo. The first cells to differentiate from, you first get your half cell from mom and half cell from dad. Those become 1 and then 2 and then 4 and 6. The first cells that begin to differentiate and become specialized cells, brain cells. Then a little cord comes off that. We call that the neural cord or the nodal cord. It becomes a spinal cord. It's the first system. This superhighway begins right at that stage. Now, we're born with all of these things. So it starts at birth. We're born with the parts, but amazingly enough, unlike your car, which is assembled parts, it can literally begin to, based on what the brain experiences with its senses, it can actually begin to reprogram, rewire things. So this superhighway is built and rebuilt and edified and refined, and that starts at the birth process. Really, it probably starts in utero, okay? Hearing sounds and feeling mom's emotions, it actually starts creating messages, and those messages will turn literally into brain cells. It's super exciting. Well, then anyway, then we hang on mom's, apron string, so to speak. We get into preschool and kindergarten, and of course, next thing, grade school, and we start filling it with all kinds of math math and science and reading and foreign language. And it's pretty phenomenal how the brain is continually building. We go further into high school, and then, of course, college, and maybe school after that, and then maybe we get into a career and people are cranking and going, and then what? Well, the saying goes that if you use it, then you won't lose it, okay? But if you don't use it, you lose it. So if you don't continue learning and training and studying, you're going to atrophy. The brain is going to atrophy. So the topic for today, though, is chronic pain and the brain. The way I see it is that there's good news and there's bad news. So see, the nervous system grows based on what is constantly happening to it from the environment. So the smells, the sounds, the things that we get from reading, the visual cortex, all of these are constantly happening, and it's quite amazing how this all comes together. So as I mentioned before, the brain actually rewires itself. So with chronic pain, if enough pain continues from an injury or a trauma, and that can be physical, it can be from chemical, it can be from emotional, but if enough of this continues, then the brain will rewire itself to anticipate future bouts of this pain, which makes the patients constantly wary and worry and causes significant anxiety related to this pain. So over time, with chronic pain, the brain becomes less able to handle even mundane tasks. Getting dressed in the morning, it becomes almost overwhelming. Okay, hearing people, listening, making sense, remembering names, and all these things can actually lead to things like social isolation, right? So we don't feel comfortable about doing this, so we kind of start to isolate because it's not comfortable to be in these situations. So again, how does chronic pain affect the brain? It can lead to anxiety. It can lead to depression, as I said. And these sort of things really kind of bum us out, eventually leading to hopelessness. Green tea is what we have here. Helps with your antioxidants. So, chronic pain in the brain. Let me show you this new slide. Here's how things work. Okay, so we're not exactly sure how or why chronic pain eventually reduces our serum cortisol levels, but this is what we think so far. Stress comes into the system. As I said, maybe it's a concussion, maybe it's a broken leg, maybe it's a knee injury, maybe it's an emotional trauma. But stress comes into the brain anticipates that, it starts to freak out, it gets nervous, it has to respond. The body's thinking, oh my gosh, I'm at a potential for dying or getting severely injured. So it sends a message, the brain sends a message to the hypothalamus, which is deep inside the brain. The hypothalamus releases a hormone, CRH, which actually releases, and it tells the pituitary gland, which is our master gland, the master controlling gland, it tells it to release another hormone, ACTH. We don't need to know all the names of this, but the ACTH releases into the bloodstream. The bloodstream carries this all the way around until eventually it hits the correct receptors, which happen to be in the adrenal glands, way down here, that sits on top of the renals, otherwise known as the kidneys. Well, the adrenal glands get this, and it goes, oh, okay, I got the message. I'm going to go ahead and release the stress hormone called cortisol. Okay, and this cortisol, the cortisol levels in the blood go up, and they do certain things, like they get your muscles tightened and ready, they kind of slow down digestion. Cortisol will increase blood pressure, increase pulse rate, all these different things, which is really important. If you're being chased by a bear and need to run out of there, it's good that the cortisol is there. You want high blood pressure. You want that pulse rate being weight. You want the muscles being tight and ready to go. You don't want to digest at that point. So the brain doesn't really differentiate so much between a bear that's chasing us and stress and even chronic pain. Now, if this pain continues unabated, this chronic pain continues without anything changing, as it says here, over time the hypothalamic, pituitary, adrenal axis is suppressed, meaning it's getting turned down, and then eventually the serum levels, the blood levels of cortisol drop. Now, like blood pressure, like blood sugars, it's good to have the right amount of cortisol. It's actually really important, but you don't want too high, and at the same time, you don't want too low. One of the mechanisms that we think occurs is that we believe that the adrenals can become fatigued, if not even outright exhausted. So that would be called adrenal exhaustion. That can be called adrenal fatigue. Okay, it just poops out. Here are the effects. We got high cortisol and we got low cortisol. On the high cortisol side, we can read this here. As mentioned before, this is going to suppress immunity. Imagine, you don't really need to work on the common cold when you're running from a bear, right? So over time, it's going to suppress immunity, causes hypertension, otherwise known as high blood pressure, high blood sugar, needs sugar in the blood, right, in order to fight, flight, or move out of the way. It can cause insulin resistance. This is not the time to pack away blood sugars, right? We need sugar in the blood. Cravings for carbohydrates, get more sugar into the system. Fats can deposit, over time, fats can deposit face, neck, and belly. Reduce libido. So not the time to have sex, and that's what high cortisol does. Metabolic syndrome, diabetes 2, and the list goes on and on. From there, some of the conditions we see. Diabetes over a long period of time. It's going to lead to numbness, tingling, and burning in the extremities. We call that peripheral neuropathy. So as we said, we don't know exactly why, but the high cortisol eventually can turn into low cortisol. Maybe the adrenals are just pooped out. Okay, so low cortisol has some of the opposite effects. Fatigue, muscle weakness, loss of appetite, weight loss, nausea, vomiting, low blood pressure, dizziness, fainting, falling. Okay, so these are some of the things that can happen with both high or low cortisol. Neither is good. We need to optimize that. So what are some approaches? The first approach is the Western medicine approach. And Western medicine is excellent. We need to have that there, but it's really an acute sort of setting, right? If I crack my head open riding my bicycle, I want to go to the ER. This is not the time for the chiropractor, the massage therapist, the acupuncture. We're not going to meditate. I guess that might be positive thinking, but man, we need to get the head fixed. We need the drugs. We need the surgery. We need to break out our life-saving tools, techniques, medications, surgeries. All that stuff is really, really important. But for chronic conditions, for chronic pain, for cortisol burnout, I mean, unless you have conditions like Addison's where your adrenals are completely burnt, then Western medicine drug approach is really only like, holding buckets under a broken roof. So buckets are good, but we need to actually fix the problem. So let's get on to how I do it, or how we do it in our office. We look at it more like this roof right here. Okay, so you got the guy holding the buckets like, I got to fix this problem. That's like taking medicines. That's never going to fix the problem of chronic pain. It's only going to cover up the symptoms. I think we all get that, right? If you have a leaky roof, and sometimes our roof, which way is it? This way, that way? Sometimes our roof actually looks like that. Okay, meaning the patients who come in, some of them have like a little hole in it, and other ones have a giant gaping hole, right? So, but at some point, somebody who's skilled has got to set up a ladder, walk up there, and first identify what's the problem. You got a hole in your roof, okay? Yeah. And then number two, we got to work at correcting that. Well, in the case of this example here, we're going to have to do significant work on this thing. And some of my patients come in, they need significant work, and it's more than one thing. I mean, look at this thing. You got the shingles, or whatever those things are called there. The underlayment, which would be the plywood, is gone. It looks to me like the rafters are gone. I mean, it is a mess. We got some serious structural problems going on. But eventually, something obviously overloaded this system. It broke, and now the thing is leaking. This person's got some major problems right here. So first thing that I would say that's really important is find what the underlying cause is. If it's knee pain, get to the bottom and fix it. See a chiropractor, physical therapist. Sometimes people need surgery, but get to the bottom of this problem. Get this pain under control. And I don't mean just with opioids. We have a major epidemic with that. But help to fix the problem. Acupuncture. Mentioned a couple of these, okay? You got to know that every single medication, down from the 325 or even the 81 milligram of aspirin on up to hydrocodone, All of these medications have side effects, some of them very serious side effects, and some of these side effects are like other holes that are being punched into the roof. So we've got to look at that, and a lot of times my patients come in and I say, wow, you got some serious problems, but you got the medications that are trying to cover up the symptoms of these problems, and the medications are actually a contributing factor to their overall clinical picture. So how do we reverse chronic pain? I said before, find out the cause of the problem. This is like the classic chiropractor thing where we say we're DC, right? Doctor Chiropractor. Because we say that stands for Doctor of Cause. Okay, and the medical doctor is really the doctor who's looking to take and cover up the symptoms. Find the cause and help to fix as many of those as you possibly can. Okay, so how do we do that? Here comes the big secrets. We teach people how to better live. Okay, because the key is, here's the key. Here's the key to the 85 to 90%. It's not me. All right. I have no idea how to fix diabetes. I really don't. I don't have an idea how to fix a nerve system. I don't even know how to grow a blade of grass. But the good news is that your body and your patients' bodies know how to do that. We were born, we were endowed, we were given the ability of self-healing. We were given the ability to survive. And it's all about survival. Whether you're a plant like this here, doesn't have enough water, as long as you give the plant or the animal what it needs, it's going to do all it can in order to survive. That means heal itself. It's kind of hard to be the best surviving human if you got a bummed out knee. Okay, so we already have that. Vast majority of most, if not all, chronic conditions are lifestyle related. They're not missing chemical related. Let me take a little side note. I said this before. Our niece has diabetes type 1, right? Something she was born with. Her pancreas does not produce insulin. Thank God for medicine. That's one of those cases where, sure, a chiropractic adjustment, acupuncture treatment would probably be beneficial, but eventually it's going to be a major problem. She could die from not having insulin. So I am really happy that we have that medication here. But again, most chronic conditions are not missing medications. They're bad lifestyle. So what does that mean? Simple. Kind of like the vet, when you bring your sick dog or sick horse to the vet, the vet asks, hey, what have you been feeding this dog? What have you been feeding this horse? Well, I don't know. I've been giving him scraps off the table, been giving this, that, Pop-Tarts. And he's like, no. You don't feed that to a dog. You got to give dog what dogs are supposed to eat. Of course, dogs are carnivores. Horses are herbivores, right? They're not supposed to eat meat. So you don't want to switch that. So we teach people, amazingly enough, how to eat well. We're going to go into that in a next slide, but eating well, critically important. Listen, I could stop the slide right here. Actually, it's the next slide, but I could stop the slide after that and say we're done. Because if you just learn how to eat well, problems are going to start to solve on their own. It's amazing. All right, so you guessed it. The next one is going to be move well. Well, we'll call it exercise if you want, the big E word, the exercise word, or whatever. But humans are supposed to move a lot. Think about our caveman and cavewoman ancestors. Think about the healthiest nation in the world, France. Okay? What do they do that's different than us? Well, they have really good food. It's local. They don't they don't get their food from all across the planet. From what I know, you get it fresh. It's usually local. They do not allow GMOs. A whole new topic there. But they also move around a lot. And in the United States of America, we're a pretty sprawled out country. So a lot of us, myself included, need to go to this thing called a gym because I can concentrate all of my exercise into a 1 hour packed period. We'll cover that in just a second, but we need to teach people how to move well. And where I start people is simple. Start walking, okay? Just start walking. Sleeping well. Sleeping well. We're going to cover that on a slide as well. Eat, move, and sleep. We got to think well, too, and there's a couple other things, too, but those are the main ones. This is how we get the great results, okay? So back on to eat well. This is what I recommend for eat well. There's a lot to be said here. But again, if this is the only thing you do, You will start reversing your chronic pain, I promise you. And you'll start reversing the damage done from the cortisol of that chronic pain. Yeah, what I recommend is the paleo diet. There's plenty of research on it. Currently, I'm reading a book called Always Hungry. That's a great one. There's another one called The Paleo Diet. Loren Cordain, he's kind of the grandfather, kind of made up this whole concept of the paleo diet. But real essential. It's eating proteins, fats, good carbohydrates. Basically, it's if our caveman, cavewoman ancestors were able to eat it, gather it, hunt it, that'd be good for you, okay? So eat that. Do not be afraid of fat. It's really important. Really important. Avocado, even from meats, nuts, things like that. Proteins, nuts, meats, etc. Good carbs. I mean like the kind that comes from fruits, vegetables, nuts and seeds, things like that. Those are really good. Okay, there's a few things that we want to eliminate, or at least drastically eliminate. And this is what I tell my patients. Hey, if nature made it, it's good. Okay, basically, it's good for you. And if man made it, refined it, or otherwise changed it, then it's not good for you. Just a real basic rule. But we kind of want to stay away from our starchy foods, refined foods, any man-made foods. Okay, things that you find generally in packages and cans. There's exceptions to every rule, but basically, wheats and grains, dairy, things like that, we're just not engineered to have them. We can have them. I love my Haagen-Dazs too, I'll admit, but we're not engineered to have all that sugar. We're not engineered to have all of these refined foods. We can do it, but it ain't good for you. Gotta cut it out. So tons of water. Okay, what does that say? Ooh, eliminate or drastically reduce? No, we don't want to eliminate or drastically reduce. We want to drink lots of water. Green tea, this is mostly water. Green tea is cool. Coffee, it's got a lot of water in it, but it's got a lot of caffeine, which kind of pulls the water out. So can't really call coffee an okay hydrating sort of thing. It's a dehydrator. So we want to drink lots of water. How much? You know, you've heard the thing. 8-ounce glasses of water a day. There's a bunch of different formulas out there. But I'd say you should be peeing at least once an hour. And also if you pee and you look down there and you see it's like fluorescent yellow, you're dehydrated, okay? So get some more water, and that's a good way of doing that. Just drink a lot of water, and you'll start getting better. So in this day and age, because of the way we farm, or realistically I should say over-farm our soils, we probably really need to supplement. If you're like me, I'm a chiropractor, I'm under a roof all day, I'm not getting my vitamin D, okay? So we should probably have your doctor, your chiropractor, your practitioner do some blood testing for deficiencies. But we want to make sure we're good on the B12 and the B6, the D3. Magnesium is farmed out. You know, they farm that right out of the soil. So magnesium, potassium. Yeah, you should be able to get most of these things with a really good, clean, organic, non-GMO diet. How many people are doing that? Not all. So here's what I would recommend for supplementing. 2,000 international units of vitamin D3 a day. At least. I do closer to 5. Put some of my patients on 10 for a month and then back them down to 5 maintenance. But at least 2 to be safe. Check the levels with your doctor. It is a fat soluble. Okay. There's a product, I don't have time to go into it, but it's kind of like a probiotic. It's not even really a prebiotic, but it helps to it helps to create a great soil in the environment called the small intestine, large intestine, stomach. It helps with the gut biome. Okay, really, really important. So look up Restore. Look up Restore Dr. Zach Bush. Watch any of his videos. The guy's phenomenal. Okay. Pro-arginine, or any type of arginine we use for our chronic conditions. Arginine, L-carnitine, these are amino acids, and they've actually been shown to dilate arteries, therefore improve circulation. So we use the company Pro-arginine. I'm not making money off Restore or any vitamins or anything like that, so I don't need to divulge anything. But the Pro-arginine is just something we found to be really, really helpful. So check that out. Pretty cool. Helps lower blood pressure. All right. Now, I got a question for you. What if Merck or Pfizer, or one of the companies, came up with a drug that would practically guarantee the following benefits? I want to know, would you prescribe it or would you buy it? So what if we could find something, a little pill, a potion, capsule, or something that could lower the risk of early death? What about lower the risk of coronary heart disease, reducing risk of stroke, high blood pressure, lower the risk of adverse blood lipid profile, type 2 diabetes, reducing metabolic syndrome, colon cancer, breast cancer, prevention of weight gain, weight management, all right? Improved cardiovascular, cardiorespiratory, muscle fitness, prevention of falls, reduced depression, better cognitive studies. What if we could find a drug that would do that for you? Well, you'd probably buy it and we'd be flocking in droves. The reality is, sorry, it doesn't exist. But all of those things are to be found in this thing called exercise. And this is a funny slide, but most Americans were so lazy. Here's a slide of the guys walking up to the gym, the 24-hour fitness. They're taking the escalator. But we can learn a little bit from this. Why not park your car maybe a little farther out? Do you really have to be all the way up there? Why don't you leave that for people who are in a wheelchair, okay, who really need to be closer? Start making a habit of parking farther back. When you're in the airport, instead of riding on the people mover, unless you're late, why don't you walk, okay? Why don't you take, get your bike out, start walking, but get to a gym or something, but all of those benefits that I just talked about were well researched and have strong evidence according to the CDC. Hey, I don't know if the CDC is always right, but I personally, as a triathlete, have found all of those things to be true. Who wouldn't want to reduce the risk of a premature death, wouldn't you? So, how much? Well, the CDC says for substantial health benefits, adults should do at least 2 hours and 30 minutes a week. Oh my gosh, sometimes I'm on a bike ride for 4 hours, so 2 hours and 30 minutes doesn't really sound that hard. That calculates to about 21 1/3 minutes per day. I think you could do that. Now, that's moderate intensity. If you wanted to crank it up, you can get by with doing 75 minutes. That's an hour and 15 minutes a whole week of vigorous intensity aerobic exercise. Okay, now we need to get some weight training in there as well. We should spread these workouts over the week. Sure, you could do all 75 minutes in one session and knock it out for the week, but it's way better. It would be way better to do 10 minutes, 15 minutes a day. And they say to get those benefits, you should be doing at least 10-minute segments of that. So, a lot to be said for exercise. Welcome to America. Move better. We also need to sleep well. All right. So, sleep like a baby. I used to say that, and then I had 4 of them, but that baby seems to be sleeping really well. So the CDC has some good research on that as well. For substantial, they're all based on research, but look at this, CDC. For substantial health benefits, adults should get at least 7 hours. 7 hours a night. And we're finding that Americans are way under that. Not even 6, some people, okay? We have to have at least 7. It makes a massive difference. Here's another question. What if you knew that too little sleep is going to raise your risk of cardiovascular disease like heart attack, like stroke, diabetes, obesity? We do a weight loss program, and one of the things we say, of course, drink tons of water, eat really good food, the paleo diet, and get at least 7 hours of sleep a night. It's really, really hard to change a metabolic condition like overweight if you're not getting enough sleep. So that's really, really important. Okay. Pain, brain problems, those are all affected by lack of sleep. So we want to really watch that. The next one we want to do to teach people is to get out of their chronic pain is we want to teach them to get off drugs. Now, when I say drugs, I'm talking about all drugs. If you're on heroin, if you're on cigarettes and alcohol, you need to really get off those things, okay? There is no moderation in some of these things, but we got to get off the drugs. What I'm really in addition to that, what I'm referring to is medications. Now, I don't know if this stat is really correct or not. There's some hems and haws about it, but I think it's not that far off. I know for sure that Americans, we comprise 5% of the world's population, 5. Yet we consume somewhere around 75% of all the world's prescription and non-prescription meds. 5%, 75%. We are majorly on drugs. We are drugged out. And every one of those drugs is having its own set of side effects. And one drug, really works with the other drug. And they are, 1 and 1 sometimes is 16. Okay, it's not like simple mathematics. So Dr. Bush, who I was referring to earlier, wrote the foreword to my upcoming book, and it's called Reversing Peripheral Neuropathy. You saw it on the front slide. Reversing Peripheral Neuropathy, Making the Impossible Possible. I'm going to read a quote from him. In his foreword, he said, America was recently ranked 49th in the world for overall health outcomes. Our nation's health is now falling behind war-torn nations like Croatia and nations in the developing world like Chile. Meanwhile, Americans spend more than double per capita healthcare costs of any other developed country to achieve these dismal results. We're spending a ton of money, and we're not getting the results. We're getting sicker and sicker and sicker. 49th? How is it that we're behind Croatia and Chile? Okay, maybe it's our approach. My approach to getting you better with your chronic pain, which is leading to brain problems, is to eat well, to sleep well, and to move well, and get off the drugs. So work with don't just throw them away. Some of them are dangerous just to go cold turkey on. We're not wanting to do that. But we need to have strategies to reduce the medications that you're on. That's it, guys. Those are the secrets. I gave way more than 3, but those are the secrets. The secret is tapping into your body's natural inborn healing capacity, taking away obstacles to the healing process so that your body can turn things around and heal itself. The brain is plastic, meaning that it is changeable, it is alterable. You can prune it, you can clip it, you can rewire it. So with that, I hope you've got some useful information from this webinar, and I look forward to your comments real soon. Have a great day.